So I am going to this morning tell you my story. So I was a copier salesperson and I did not like my job. I was in a precarious place in my life. I was in a precarious place looking for answers. Copier salesperson. After all that college and hard work, that's the job I got. That's that reward. This is the professional world, the corporate world. This is what you're rewarded with after getting a big old degree. Okay. So, as I was doing this job Monday through Friday, dreading Mondays, just like trying to dress up in my business suit and pretend like I was, really had it now, like I got a good life now. A couple of years of that, I'm like, I hate this. I hate my life. The highlight of my day was going out for lunch. The weekends would be like go to the bar, drink all the time, just to, numb myself because I just didn't want to even go back to work. Okay. And I could really see the writing was on the wall. I could see that if I continued this, I was going to end up middle-aged, overweight, married to somebody that was probably just like me, bored and unhappy with their life, and having nothing to talk about really. And I'm like, that is not who I want to be. I had eczema on my hands. That's like psoriasis. I would have like panic attacks before these sales meetings because I would just, for me, get so nervous being in sales, having quotas. So I would forget it all. I'd go drinking on the weekends. And then I would chase guys like in the nightclubs in Madison, Wisconsin. But I never found any quality guys because, when I look at it honestly, was I acting like quality? And I knew it. I'm like, am I being quality? How can I attract anybody that's going to be the kind of person that I want? High integrity, adventurous, doing stuff in the world when I wasn't doing it. So I realized I needed to change my life. I needed to change myself. That's when I decided that I was going to quit my job as a copier salesperson. And I bought a round the world ticket and I started traveling around the world. Okay. And I cashed in my retirement. Not supposed to be doing that, but that's what I did for money. And I basically lived on a shoestring and I traveled all around the world for 2.5 years. Now this was super fun, learning a lot. And one of the things that I learned though was probably the most valuable thing for me at the time was that since I was traveling to all of these very developing countries, where you can live on $10 a day. And even then, I'm sleeping on the floor a lot, not even getting a place to stay because I'm pretty much homeless. I learned that I could figure things out. I could get to one place to another. All I had to depend on was myself because I'm traveling by myself. And I could survive on very little, like a can of tuna fish, a piece of bread, like the whole day, and sleep on the floor. So if I could do that, what else was there to fear? I've basically been homeless already. So I would have these amazing experiences, just traveling and seeing stuff. And I really recommend, what I recommend the most is growing through experience. That's how you really learn who you are. It's not quietly, in my opinion, it's not quietly contemplating life, myself, getting in touch with myself, my feelings. I believe that all of the real change where you become strong and the person that you want to be, it's through doing stuff that other people don't do, going out there and having a lot of experiences that you create, okay? So where am I going with this? Well, the film industry, that is what it is. It is a whole bunch of experiences. So after 2.5 years of traveling, my last year I was in Africa and I was doing the safari and we ended up in the same area as this film crew. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. I could do that. That's what I want to do. I want to work for National Geographic. And I'm like, is that a crazy idea? Is that a ridiculous idea? And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to even think about that. I've already been traveling all around the world living, like nobody else lives. So I'm just going to say that it's a great idea. When I told my family and my friends, they're like, what? You've never even cared about animals at all. I'm like, I know, but I want the lifestyle. I want to travel the world. I want to live in the bush. I care about the animals now. And they're like, okay, Janet. So I went to South Africa and I tried to get in the film industry. Okay, now it was not easy. I did not know what to do at all to get this big goal of working for National Geographic. I didn't even know how to get started. So I would contact people, I would send them my resume that had copier sales on it, and I didn't hear anything. I would call production companies, because I kind of knew that who's producing these films? Production companies. I would call them, I would send my resume, I would email them. When I called them, they would recognize my voice because I called before, and they would hang up on me. I'm like, oh my God, that's so mean of them. And I'd be like pissed, like they should be nicer to me. But then I realized that I'm not their client, so they really don't care. I'd go to film festivals and I would walk around. I would try to meet people at these film festivals, and I'd just be like, hey, what are you working on? What are you working on? And all I would meet were these zero budget filmmakers. And, they were trying to get the film industry themselves. So I felt very out of my element. And I was beginning to start to think that this was maybe a ridiculous idea at this point. I got obsessed with the work, the craft. I got obsessed with the people that were doing that work right now. And everything that they were interested in, basically, I became my best to be just like them. I wanted the same knowledge, I wanted the same connections, I wanted the same mastery, I wanted the same life that they had. So that meant that I had to really know I had to know these people, I had to know what they're doing, what they're working on, how they did it, everything. So I got my hands on a lot of wildlife films. I would sit there for hours watching wildlife films, taking notes, understanding the animal behavior, writing down questions about what I was interested in. And then I would watch the credits of all these wildlife films and I would write down who was in it and who had made it. And I studied everything about this stuff. I knew the music, I knew the camera people, I knew who was executive producer, I knew the production companies, I knew the storylines, I knew how stuff cut together, I knew the animal behavior, I knew the scenes. Oh my God, that one scene where you got this and the camera was there, that was amazing. And I started reaching out to these people as being somebody that was so obsessed. I would call them, I would fax them, I would email them. Now things are starting to happen for me now because I'm coming from a different place. Not like, hey, can you help me? I'm a copier salesperson, but now I'm like, I've been traveling around the world. I'm a wildlife filmmaker. I just haven't learned very much about it yet, but I'm passionate about it. And they're passionate about it too. Okay, I got a couple of them to open their doors. So those guys are like, okay, come on over. I'll teach you my stuff. I'll show you my tripod. I'll show you my camera. So I got on some shoots and I started now having what I call experiences. Now, some of these shoots I got on for free. Some of these shoots I was paid, not very much, $100 a day. And I remember one shoot I was hired as an actor in Namibia where I was riding a camel through the sand dunes of Namibia. And they flew us to Namibia from Johannesburg, put us up in hotels, and helping out as a production assistant, but I'm also an actor, a small crew, really fun, so much fun. And I'm like, this is filmmaking? Holy shit. And then I did another project where I was flying around in helicopters, elephant relocation projects. So we were darting the elephants from the air and then they would fall asleep and then we'd move them to a new place in the bush. So I'm like, oh my God, this is my life and I got to help out in pre-production. I was there when they were filming. I was helping out, taking notes, and then I helped out in the editing. And it was so interesting. And working on something like that, it gave me stuff to talk about. And people were like, wow, that's cool you did that. Now, when you start doing stuff that is interesting to people, you got experiences for yourself, but you also have material to talk about that makes you stand out. What I recommend you guys do is do what millions of people don't do, and that is creating a career out of thin air through what I call vectoring. Now, vectoring is where you are getting people to open their doors to you because you're talking about what you've done for yourself. Vectoring is where you use experiences and the people that you're working with and you talk about it, and it leads you to more people and more experiences. And pretty soon you're doing stuff that nobody else is doing. And it leads you to more and more people because of the experiences that you're going out there and you're getting. And your connections grow exponentially. And you get referred, because as you've heard me say, the whole business works on referrals. You get referred to exactly who are the right people for what you want to do through this process called vectoring. You cannot just study vectoring. You can understand what it is, and then you have to do it. And this is what we're doing in the A-List work study, is it's all based on vectoring. You're creating these experiences, these film shoots, and these shoots, they're professional, all professional, and they're very interesting. And the people that you're working with, like the Elephant Relocation Project, the Namibia thing, and I work for ABC News and WTN News, these people, they know each other. They've heard of each other. They're like, oh, wow, that's cool that you worked on that. And what this does is it sets you up to have these peer-to-peer conversations. Okay, so like I'm talking to you about my experiences, and it was professional stuff, so I'm not asking people to help me or hook me up. I'm able to reach out to people like, hey, I just got back from Namibia. Hey, you guys want to have lunch? I've never met you before, but I know this person. You might have worked with them. It'd be great to get together. You want to have lunch? And they'd be like, yeah, for sure. And these are producers. These are high-end people. So like when I was coming through London, I set up all these meetings with the BBC Natural History Unit and Survival Anglia and some of these other wildlife producers because of the people that I had met and the experiences that I had in Africa. That's vectoring. Now I know that you're not going to go to Africa and do exactly what I did. But through this work study program, you're going to be doing vectoring, which will give you the same result, and you will have the most amazing experiences because you'll be out there doing stuff that nobody else does in a way that nobody else does. Now that would be getting on shoots that, first of all, finding what you're obsessed about, getting on shoots around that subject matter and knowing it inside out and having these conversations that will lead you to more and more people. So you're doing this using small and medium shoots. You know, the commercial I did, the Elephant Relocation, was like a documentary. And working for news, I was doing all these news stories. Those were small shoots. But you get exposed to the whole thing. You see what it takes to set up these little shoots. You're working on the shoots on the shoot day, and then you see what happens after the shoots, all the wrapping. It's perfect. It's exactly what you're doing on these big shoots. And it's on the smaller scale, so there's less pressure. From one of those meetings in London where I met with an executive producer, I still remember sitting right there in his office. He's in this huge, big office with wildlife stuff all over the place. And I was talking to him, and I found out about this cameraman, this wildlife filmmaker named Jeff Foote. And the executive producer was currently working with Jeff on a project. So he told me about Jeff. And I'm like, oh, wow, Jeff's in Jackson Hole. Cool, cool. Now, I was going back to the United States. So when I got back, I called up Jeff. And I was like, hey, I just met with your executive producer. I would love to meet you. And he's like, yeah, sure, come on by. Because I knew he was the executive producer. And because I had done all this stuff in Africa. Vectoring, again. So this, you can see, this is completely different than sending your resume around and hoping that somebody goes, oh, this person seems all right. No, we're actually doing it the way that it works for the top people in the film industry. A-list means top. A-list means you're the best. A-list is a different mentality. It's a different energy. It's a different way of doing things. Okay, a lot different than, can you give me a shot? Okay, you're actually having a lot of conversations that demonstrate that you're already working professionally and they should think of you for their next shoot. Peer-to-peer conversations. Okay? And I had, remember, no experience, none whatsoever. I was a copier salesperson, no connections. I didn't know anybody, not a single person. So you can do this just the way that I did it. You can do it probably better than I can because I was just floundering around. You will have somebody teaching you to do it. What doesn't work is sending your resume around, trying to get somebody to give you a shot. Or trying to meet people like for coffee to pick their brain. This is what a lot of people are doing. Or trying to get people to see your talent and represent you. All of that stuff is scratching on the outside of the film industry. Because you're not in, you're not doing it. You're trying to get the opportunity to do it. okay? And that's tough. It's full of rejection because nobody knows you. And the main problem is that you're contacting people cold. So it's much harder to do it that way from the outside. In fact, it's debilitating. I don't know if I had done that, I don't think I would have survived. So a lot of you guys are very strong in that you keep at it, but what you're doing is probably not going to work. And I'm explaining this to you so that you understand why it's so damn hard, why it's so painful. You know, why you're feeling rejection is because you're not in and you're trying to get in, and the way that you're approaching it is not the way that it works. The way to get in is to learn this process of vectoring. It is so much easier, and it's also so much more fun, because it's no fun to send around your resume and have it be this big serious thing that you're trying to convince these people to give you a shot. That is no fun. And they've got not only you contacting them, they've got hundreds of other people saying the exact same thing. I just graduated from NYU. I just graduated from Full Sail. I have a degree in this. I took a course in that. I went to this film festival. I won this award. Oh, it's the same thing over and over again. That's a lot different than somebody that says, oh, I just got off of this shoot. I worked with so-and-so. It was so amazing. I actually got to be there for the entire editing process, and I learned this, and I worked with this program. And next I'm on this. I'd love to meet you at some point. I hear that you do great work. So-and-so speaks so highly of you, and I hope that we're able to do that. Do you have anything coming up? Maybe I could stop by and meet you for a quick second. Just be good to know who you are. Good to meet you. That's a peer-to-peer kind of conversation. Doesn't that feel different than, hey, I just, graduated and I'm looking to get my first job? Now, if you say that to a film professional, they'll be like, what are you even talking about? There is no first job. It's like one day, one shoot. Okay, that's your first job. But that's not the way that we talk in the film industry. So you just graduate from film school and you don't even know the way that we talk in the film industry. See, this is why it's so painful, because you just don't know. So you're doing the best that you can, but you're bombing all over the place because they're like, oh, again. So they're contacted by all these people that are saying, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. I'm trying to get my first job. Now, what I want you to do, and what vectoring sets you up to do, is to look at this as a career that you are engaged in, you're obsessed about, you want to learn from the best, you want to be the best, you're educating yourself, and you're not looking for help, you're out there doing it. Big difference. They want to work with people like that, okay? And when you choose to do it this way, even if you've never done this before, you are growing so much as a person, because you're focusing in a different place than you normally are. The focus shifts from, what do I need to do to get on the radar and get people to like me, hire me? How can I? And it shifts to what I'm excited about, what I'm learning today, the kind of projects that I'm seeking out, and the kind of education that I'm giving myself. It's a shift. And this one is a lot more attractive than this one. Now, I want to tell you something. You might be like, oh, she's Superwoman. Okay. The most important thing about this whole thing was getting over what I thought was wrong with myself. The thing that I worried about the most was the fact that being in copier sales, or even before that, when I did gymnastics, I would have these panic attacks. And I definitely had this high anxiety wired into my body. And it's still there. It's still in my nervous system. So it can come back if I focus on it. So I had high anxiety wired into my body that would come up in a moment's notice, and it would sabotage me. And this is very devastating, because you feel like you don't have control, and you get really bummed because, what can you do? It just comes over you, right? Now, I could dig into why my body can go into this high anxiety state. But what I really love about the personal development that I've done, like Landmark, Tony Robbins, NLP, MITT, I love with NLP that you do not go back and you look at why this happened. Like you do this with therapy. They're like, so why do you think that you have these feelings? And You repeat the story and you repeat the story and you find your reasons and you're like, that's why I am the way I am. And then because then you have the perfect explanation for why you are the way you are, why that's what's wrong with you, then it gets anchored in there even deeper. And it really becomes part of your identity. So what I love about what I teach is we don't do that. We don't care about the why. We don't tell the story of why we are this way that we don't want to be. We don't focus on it. In fact, we just leave that alone and we move on. We move on to being the people that we want to be. We have new thoughts. We look at where we want to go and we do new things that we've never done before and we surprise ourselves. And we start to shift this idea of who we are to something we have never seen before, we have never experienced before, because we're doing it and then we're learning it all through experiences. And what this does, it starts to break up that wiring. The wiring is the instant reaction, the panic attacks, the anxiety, whatever it could be for you, the depression, the procrastination, whatever it is, you're like, this is keeping me from being successful. And you might be very sad about it because you might be like, this is always going to be there and this is what I have to deal with. That's going to affect my success. Not at all. Not at all. So what should you do? You should grow. You should choose to grow. You should not focus on that thing anymore and focus on where you want to go, what you want to learn, who you want to be. And that's going to feel a lot better. And what's going to happen is you are going to grow into this person that you want to be. And this wiring that you don't like, it's going to start to loosen up and start to fade away. And that's not going to really be you anymore. It's not going to be you. If you don't strengthen it, it's going to start to fade away. Does this make sense? Whatever you strengthen is who you're going to be. Where focus goes, energy flows. So you develop this part of you and you're going to find that that's who you become. And then you're going to be very happy because there will be no limitations in your head. You've taken them out. So this is very, very exciting. And this is actually the reason why I teach A-List in the first place. This is why I teach this. This is why I have friends in film. It all comes down to that. It all comes down to that. When you leave behind the things that you think are wrong with you and you create this new way to look at yourself, like a new identity, here's the best thing, other than you feel so much better. All these big, amazing goals that you have that are like, oh my gosh, I want to win an Oscar. I want to become the best actor. When you start to grow into this new identity, those goals do not seem that far away. In fact, they feel like they're a natural progression. Like that's something that you can do. All of a sudden it's like, that could happen. I'm working on it. That can definitely happen. Because you start making so many other changes to your life that seemed impossible and you're doing them. And then you're very happy. And happiness equals progress. Progress equals happiness. But feeling good attracts people to you. And then you make progress. And then you change because you're like, oh my gosh, I've got stuff that people want. Okay. So I used vectoring to move really fast when I first got in the film industry, but also how I moved to the top in the film industry. Throughout the entire time, I was using vectoring. And I moved really fast. Only a couple years, and I was a department head sound mixer for commercials. Everybody that started in the film industry at the same time that I did, they're still making $300, $400, $500 a day. I'm between $2,000 to $3,000 a day, and I start a big job tomorrow. That one's going to be $3,000 a day. That's like a 4-day job, $3,000 a day. So 3 times 4, what is that? $12,000 in 4 days? And that's just 1 week. So this is why we love the film industry, because there's 7 days in a week. I'm working 4 of them, not even 5 days a week. I'm working 4 days and I'm making $12,000 in 1 week. What's next week? I've got another 3-day job. Okay? And so I'm making great money and I'm only working so many days, not that many days. I got there really fast. I did not start as a PA and stay as a PA for 10 years. That's what a lot of people do. And if you do my program, this work-study program, you're going to be studying how to quickly move into the crafts. That's what the whole focus is. That was what my whole focus was about. People get stuck as a PA because they don't know what else to do. And that's right there in front of them. And they have all these people, all these professionals around them that just keep hiring them for that. But you have to be controlling your career. I was on a shoot with Matt Damon, and the first AD goes, he's watching me set up, because Matt Damon wasn't there yet, and he's watching me set up, and he goes, Janet, I can't remember, who did you come up under? And I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's ever asked me that. I'm like, actually nobody, myself. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I just started right off the bat doing documentaries, news. I just started straight in my craft right away. I'm like, I worked as a PA a little bit, but I mostly just went straight into my craft. And he's like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. I'm like, yep, you can. He could not believe that here I am, a department head, doing commercials when I hadn't been a PA, and then started and worked my way up from the bottom. He couldn't remember that. He couldn't believe that. I started right off in my craft. This is what I'm teaching you to do. This is the value of that, because when you go straight into the craft, you go straight for the money. You're going straight into these high-paying jobs. Okay? So this is money. This is money, because you're going so fast into the high-paying jobs. If you're wondering, how do I get to my big goal? How do I do this big thing that I want to do, this big goal? This is my life. This is what I'm dreaming about. This is my dream. How do I get there? My advice is to start with somebody who thinks A-list. A-list means that you think that you are one of the best. You decide that you're going to be one of the best. So how does somebody, and step into this now, how does somebody who is one of the best, how do they think? How do they think? What kind of things do they want to learn, somebody who is one of the best? What do they already know about that other people don't know about? How does somebody that's one of the best, how do they observe what's going on set? How prepared are they when they go on set? Very prepared, right? How do they smile? How do they laugh when they're on set? Very free, very playful, very giving and loving, right? So it's always what you're doing that makes you who you are. And it's always your focus that makes you remember who you are. Where you're focusing, you're like, oh yeah, I'm being one of the best. What would one of the best do right now? Because you walk on set and you're like, okay, what should I do? Oh, should I go talk to somebody? Should I go have lunch? Should I go have breakfast and sit there and check my phone? And then you remember, I am A-list. That means I am supposed to be one of the best. Okay, what would one of the best do? And then you'll look around you and you will see somebody that's doing something and you'll be like, how can I help you? And you will snap into thinking like one of the best. And then you will be one of the best, because you will start getting all of these compliments. Like, oh my gosh, you're always there when I need you. And wow, you really pay attention to things. And how did you catch that? I can't believe that nobody even notices that. And wow, you're different than most people. That's right. That's A-list mentality. Now, how do you get that? Do you get it from studying a book? No, you get it by living it, by being it, by doing it. You get this by going through this process in your mind and actually doing it, right? That's how you get it. You have to experience it. How do you grow? All through experiences. What is this program doing for you? It's getting you out there in the real world so that you are having these experiences and you're creating these experiences. Super important. I love what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, because this changes lives quickly. This gets you out of ruts really fast. This is money. This is how you get in these high-paid jobs so fast. This is Richard Branson thinking. This is Oprah thinking. This is Tyler Perry thinking. This is Denzel Washington thinking. You don't have to come in being a doer, go-getter, whatever, knowing exactly. In fact, I'm going to tell you, you should not try to be perfect. You should not be afraid to make mistakes, because if you are doing this right, if you're doing this well, if this is your intention 80% of the time, look, there's 100% of the time, only 80% of the time, if you're doing this with the intention of having that A-list mentality, you're going to do great. You're going to meet so many people. You're going to get so much work. It's going to be easy for you. So that's 80% of the time. That means that 20% of the time, you forget, you mess up, you make mistakes, you get disempowered 20% of the time. 20%, that's quite a bit, right? So I'm telling you, you will still move extremely fast if you do this right 80% of the time. So take the pressure off yourself. Don't try to be perfect. Nobody wants to work with somebody that's trying to be perfect. In fact, people want to work with other human beings. You want to be somebody that's just human and that does the best that they can, but the intention is always to do a great job and help other people. Now, this learning, this doing, this gaining confidence is cementing these new neural pathways in your brain. So what we're doing is the old ones that were the way that you don't want to be. For me, the panic attacks and the anxiety and the bummed outness, those neural pathways, they were really strong when I was in copier sales, really strong. And they would creep up there when I was traveling for those 2.5 years. They would creep in there. And I didn't like it. And maybe going like, oh my God, this means I'm not going to be successful. How can I be successful when I have panic attacks? How can I be successful when I forget things and I get anxious? How can I? And I would beat myself up. And then I was like, well, Janet, do you want to be somebody that just turns into a mushball and has a shitty life? Or do you want to build something? Do you want to become more? You know, do you want to go after what you want like a mofo? And just hope that the panic attacks and the anxiety and all that is not going to sabotage you. And I'm like, I've just got to ignore that and I've got to just create this life. And in that decision is really how I did it, you know? And this is the process I teach you. This is a process that I feel is so valuable. We just go for what we want to create and we are amazed by what happens. We're amazed who we become. And what happens is these neural pathways that were really strong on the negative stuff that we don't like about ourselves, they start to break apart and fade away. Because whatever you're constantly doing, patterns of thinking that you're constantly doing, boom, 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 they get real strong, okay? So you keep thinking the same thoughts, boom, 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 it's gonna be like, oh, that's a belief, and that's what it is. But when you just like, okay, that's there, but you really start focusing now on this one. What I want, who I want to meet, what I'm excited about, what I'm doing today, what I learned today. These are new ones, okay? Now these are going to start replacing these. Make sense? And this is you. Then you'll be like, this is who I am. This is who I am. It's not this person. Make sense? That's why I teach this. Experiences. That's what we're going to be doing. So doing it this way takes a little courage, but when you want something badly enough, you're going to be like, I'm doing it. Don't have much to lose. You got a lot to gain. So many friends, so much money, so much income, so much travel. But the most important thing is who you grow into as a person. Who you get to be as a person. That's the most important thing. So after all of that travel, all of that, ups and downs and getting hung up on, but deciding I was going to learn this stuff and get obsessed and have these meetings, even though I was afraid and the panic attacks would come up sometimes, but then I focus more on where I want to go. After all of that, I got to be the person that I wanted to be. I got to have all those experiences. I got to learn this process by living it. And that's how you can quiet down inside and just be like, I got it. I got it. I lived it. I can explain it. I've done it. You quietly know that you did it, and it feels very good. And people can feel that energy. I always say the most interesting people are the ones that have gone through and overcome the most difficult, hardest, heinous stuff. The people that have had the really bad stuff happen, if They did not crumble, and instead they decided that they were going to be more and that this was their gift to the world and this is their purpose. Oh, they are the most interesting, inspiring, playful, lovely, wonderful people. Interesting people. I want to tell you one more thing. Courses, like classes, school, learning, it's great. But real world experience where you live it, that's how you develop who you are. Not through classes, because you're in the classes, you're just there learning it, and it's not creating the emotional state which gets it anchored into your body, and that becomes who you are, okay? When it gets anchored into the body is when it becomes who you are, okay? So when you stay in a job that you never stretch yourself, then you actually become more of that, okay? You lose the ability to change because you didn't take that opportunity, okay? And you might think, oh yeah, it's safe to stay in a job that I have right now because it's money coming in. For today, yes, but for tomorrow, no, it's not safe at all. In fact, you're making yourself much less safe by staying in a job that is not what you want to do, because you have the opportunity to grow and change, and instead you're choosing to not. And that's not safe. Okay. Same thing with studying courses forever and not doing it in the real world where you actually live your craft. Studying courses, that's more like kindergarten. But the real grad school, the real, just what's real is going out there and doing it. Staying in jobs that you think that you're being safe, and your parents will think that you're doing like, take that nursing job, take that doctor job, and you do that job. Then you're set for your life. But you're not safe because you didn't actually grow to become the person that you wanted to be. You didn't figure it out. You didn't venture into new area and create the life that you really want. Now, doing that, that's safe. The reason why that's safe is you grow, you become stronger, you figure it out, you conquer your own self, and then whatever situation comes up, you can handle it. That's safe. You become very capable. I become very capable. Whatever comes my way, I handle it. My whole family, I run my whole family. My mom, my dad, I take care of them. All the finances, everything. Only because of the experiences that I've given myself, this person I decided to become. The more I do, the more I can do. That's safe.